Mark Zuckerberg's story begins in the quiet town of Dobbs Ferry, New York, where life moved at a steady pace and curiosity was encouraged. He grew up in a supportive home, his father a dentist, his mother a psychiatrist, both teaching him to think deeply and observe the world with intention. Mark was quiet, thoughtful, and intensely focused even as a child. He preferred long, uninterrupted hours with books, puzzles, and computers. Those early moments of exploration planted the seeds of a mind drawn to building things that connected people. Mark's first exposure to programming came through his father, who introduced him to the basics when he was still very young. Instead of being intimidated by computers, Mark saw them as a kind of creative playground. He wasn't motivated by grades or praise. He simply loved the process of making something come alive on a screen. While other kids played outside, Mark spent hours experimenting, writing simple programs, testing ideas, and discovering the joy of solving problems through logic. His calm, determined curiosity began shaping the way he approached the world. By the time he reached middle school, Mark was already creating small software projects to help his family. One of his early inventions, ZuckNet, was a messaging system he built so the dental office downstairs could communicate with the rest of the house. It was a simple idea, but the intention behind it was meaningful. Mark wanted people to connect more easily. Even then, he showed a pattern that would define his life, using technology to bridge distance, reduce friction, and bring people closer. As Mark entered high school, his abilities grew rapidly. He excelled in programming competitions and studied advanced computer science long before most students his age. Teachers described him as calm but intensely focused, someone who could hold an idea in his mind for hours without losing concentration. He wasn't driven by prestige, he was driven by curiosity. Every new problem was an opportunity to learn something deeper about how systems and people interacted. During these years, Mark also developed a deep interest in psychology alongside programming. He wasn't just fascinated by computers, he wanted to understand human behavior. What motivated people? What created connection? What made communication feel meaningful? These questions lingered in his mind quietly, shaping the direction of his future projects. His unique blend of technical skill and social curiosity created the foundation for what he would one day build. By the time Mark finished high school, he had already created early versions of music recommendation software, chat tools, and social programs. Each project taught him something new about communication and the way people interacted online. He wasn't chasing fame or planning a company. He was simply exploring ideas step by step, guided by intuition and quiet determination. His journey was beginning to take shape, though he didn't yet know how far it would lead. When Mark was accepted into Harvard University, he carried with him the same calm focus that shaped his early years. Surrounded by ambitious classmates, he didn't feel pressured to compete loudly or prove himself. Instead, he sought clarity in the work he loved, building, experimenting, and solving problems. Harvard was a new environment, but his mindset remained steady. And within those historic walls, a simple idea would soon emerge, one that would reshape global communication and redefine the future of technology. When Mark arrived at Harvard, he entered an environment filled with ambition, energy, and intense competition. Yet he maintained the same quiet focus that guided him through childhood. While many students juggled clubs, social circles, and expectations, Mark spent long hours in his dorm room tinkering with code, exploring ideas, and building small projects. He found comfort in the rhythm of deep work. Harvard didn't change his personality, it simply expanded the space where his curiosity could grow. Mark began creating early social tools almost effortlessly. One project suggested music based on user preferences, another helped students organize information about their classes. His creations spread quickly across campus because they solved simple, real problems. These tools weren't built for attention, they were built out of genuine interest. Mark enjoyed watching how people used his software, observing the patterns of interaction with quiet fascination. During this time, Mark grew increasingly interested in the idea of online identity. He noticed that Harvard students wanted to know each other, who lived where, who shared similar classes, and how people were connected, but no digital system existed to bring those pieces together. Mark started imagining a simple platform where students could create profiles, share photos, and connect with one another. It wasn't a grand plan for a global social network. It was just a way to help his community feel more connected. Late one night in his dorm room, Mark began building the early version of a project he simply called the Facebook. The work came naturally to him. He built the core features with calm intensity, focusing on clarity and usefulness rather than complexity. Friends helped test the site, offering feedback and ideas. Within days of its launch, the Facebook began spreading to thousands of students. It grew not because Mark pushed it, but because the idea resonated with something universal: the desire to belong. The sudden growth surprised even Mark. He watched as students across Harvard and soon other universities signed up rapidly, inviting friends, building profiles, and forming digital connections. The site became a reflection of real social life, translated into a simple, online space. Mark didn't celebrate loudly or rush into big decisions. Instead, he studied the data quietly, trying to understand why people found the platform meaningful. His goal was never to chase fame, it was to understand connection. As the platform expanded to other universities, Mark faced challenges he had never experienced before. There were questions about scaling servers, managing data, and handling conflict among early collaborators. The pace increased, the pressure grew, and decisions became heavier. But even in the middle of this sudden momentum, Mark stayed anchored in the same focus he had since childhood. He looked for clarity in the problem, not noise in the reaction. And with each decision, the Facebook moved one step closer to becoming something much larger than a campus tool. Eventually, Mark realized that the project had grown beyond what he could manage while staying in school. The fascination he felt since childhood, using technology to connect people, was now unfolding in real time. He made the difficult decision to leave Harvard and pursue the project full-time. It was a risk that startled many around him, but to Mark, the path felt natural. He didn't see it as chasing greatness, he saw it as continuing a journey he had quietly begun years ago. Leaving Harvard marked a turning point in Mark's life. He moved to Silicon Valley with friends who believed in the vision, stepping into a world of entrepreneurship, uncertainty, and possibility. He carried nothing but his laptop, his determination, and a simple idea about connecting people. The next chapter of his journey would be louder, more complex, and filled with challenges he never expected. But his calm mindset remained unchanged, focused on building, learning, and moving forward one step at a time. When Mark arrived in Silicon Valley, he stepped into a world filled with noise, startups racing for attention, investors pushing for speed, and companies fighting to survive. Yet he carried the same calm focus that guided him since childhood. He rented a simple house with friends who believed in the project, working long hours filled with quiet intensity. While others chased quick wins, Mark cared only about building something meaningful. His vision wasn't loud, but it was clear. The early Facebook team grew quickly, filled with young engineers who believed they were building more than a product. They were building a new way for people to communicate. Days blended into nights as they wrote code, fixed bugs, and watched user numbers rise far quicker than they ever anticipated. The pressure increased, and so did the expectations. Investors began calling, media outlets started paying attention, and opportunities appeared faster than the team could process. But through every shift, Mark remained steady. As the company expanded beyond college campuses, Mark faced decisions that would shape Facebook's future. He had to choose between selling early or pushing forward. Some encouraged him to take the safe path, secure wealth, avoid risk, and walk away with a successful story. But Mark wasn't driven by money, he was driven by purpose. He believed Facebook could become a tool used by millions, maybe even billions, to stay connected. That belief guided him through uncertainty. With growth came conflict, both internal and external. Legal disputes emerged, challenging the origins of Facebook and questioning Mark's intentions. The spotlight intensified, casting shadows that made the path forward more complicated. Mark rarely addressed these moments publicly, choosing instead to focus on the work. He found clarity by returning to what he always understood best, building products and writing code. His calm determination allowed Facebook to continue moving forward, even under scrutiny. As the platform grew globally, Mark's leadership evolved. He shifted from being a programmer to being a CEO, responsible for guiding teams, shaping strategy, and making decisions that affected millions of people. It wasn't an easy transition. He had to learn how to communicate clearly, listen deeply, and balance ambition with responsibility. Mark approached leadership the same way he approached programming, methodically, patiently, and with a willingness to iterate until he improved. One of the defining moments of Facebook's growth came with the acquisition of Instagram. Many questioned why a small photo-sharing app mattered so much, but Mark saw something deeper, a new form of connection built around visual storytelling. Instagram wasn't competition, it was an extension of Facebook's mission. His calm, long-term vision guided the decision, one that would become one of the most influential acquisitions in tech history. Not long after, Facebook acquired WhatsApp, a messaging platform used by millions across the world, especially in regions where connection was essential. Mark believed communication should be simple, secure, and universal. WhatsApp represented that possibility. These decisions reflected Mark's belief that technology should remove barriers, not build them. Each acquisition wasn't just a business move, it was a step toward a more connected world. Yet, as Facebook grew into one of the most powerful platforms in history, new challenges emerged. Privacy concerns, misinformation, and global influence brought scrutiny unlike anything the company had faced before. Mark knew these issues required responsibility, introspection, and change. He began focusing on safety, transparency, and rebuilding trust, acknowledging the weight of the platform he had created. It was a difficult, humbling period, but also one that shaped his evolution as a leader. Despite public pressure, Mark continued to approach problems with calm determination. He held long meetings with researchers, policymakers, and engineers, gathering insights and learning from mistakes. He believed that growth came not from defending perfection, but from acknowledging limitations and improving steadily. Through these challenges, Mark's mindset remained rooted in his core values, persistence, long-term thinking, and the quiet belief that technology could still do good. As Facebook approached its next chapter, Mark felt a familiar pull toward innovation. Just as he once looked at Harvard's campus and envisioned a network connecting students, he began imagining a future where digital spaces could feel more real, more immersive, and more human. This vision would lead him to the next major pivot in his journey, one that would redefine not only his company, but the future of how people experience technology. As Facebook grew into one of the largest platforms in history, Mark reached a moment of reflection. He had built a company that connected billions of people, yet he felt technology was still only scratching the surface of what connection could become. Mark wanted to imagine a future where distance dissolved, not just through messages or photos, but through shared digital presence. This quiet, long-term vision began shaping the next stage of his leadership. He saw a world where people could work, learn, and socialize together, even from opposite sides of the planet. This vision eventually led to the creation of Meta, a bold shift from social media toward immersive digital experiences. Mark understood the criticism and uncertainty that came with such a dramatic transformation. Many questioned the idea of the metaverse, doubting whether people would ever embrace virtual worlds. But Mark approached the challenge the same way he approached Facebook in its earliest days, with calm conviction. He believed deep innovation always began with doubt, and clarity came only through persistent effort. Building Meta required patience, humility, and a willingness to explore unfamiliar territory. The company invested in virtual reality, augmented reality, and next-generation tools that could one day reshape how people interacted with technology. Mark spent countless hours reviewing prototypes, testing early devices, and learning from engineers who specialized in entirely new fields. He didn't expect immediate results. Instead, he embraced the slow, steady process of discovery that had guided him since childhood. Through this transformation, Mark's perspective on leadership continued to evolve. He became more focused on responsibility, safety, and long-term impact. He understood that creating global platforms meant facing global consequences, both good and bad. He held long discussions with researchers and policymakers, listening deeply to concerns about trust, transparency, and the well-being of users. Mark knew that growth without responsibility was incomplete. His calm patience helped him navigate a future filled with complexity. Beyond technology, Mark's personal life played a profound role in shaping his mindset. Becoming a husband and father softened his view of the world, teaching him lessons about empathy, vulnerability, and balance. He began reading philosophy, studying mindfulness, and reflecting more often. These quiet practices helped him stay grounded through public pressure and scrutiny. They reminded him that leadership wasn't about being right, it was about staying open, learning, and evolving. As Meta continued developing its long-term vision, Mark remained committed to the idea that connection was at the center of human life. Whether through social networks, messaging platforms, or immersive worlds, he believed technology could help bridge emotional distance. His work became less about building a single product and more about shaping the architecture for future generations. Mark understood that true innovation might take decades, but he was willing to wait. Patience had always been one of his greatest strengths. In reflecting on his journey, Mark often returned to a simple truth. Everything he built began with curiosity. From his childhood experiments to coding projects in a Harvard dorm room to leading a company with global influence, curiosity was his quiet constant. He believed that progress didn't require perfection, only a willingness to stay focused, stay thoughtful, and keep moving forward. His story became a reminder that calm, consistent effort can transform even the smallest idea into something world-changing. As this documentary comes to a gentle close, let Mark Zuckerberg's journey remind you that growth does not always happen loudly. Sometimes it unfolds quietly, through long hours of focus, introspection, and steady commitment. You don't need to have everything figured out to begin. You don't need to rush to make progress. Step by step, one thoughtful moment at a time, you can build something meaningful, something that reflects your purpose and your unique vision of the world. Take a slow breath, allow your mind to soften, and let the day settle gently around you. You are already on your path, moving with intention and quiet strength. And in your own time, your ideas too can shape a future no one has imagined yet. Good night.